There comes a moment in every man's life when the illusion shatters, when he realizes that what he thought was love wasn't love at all. Not unconditional, not eternal, not sacred. Just a transaction disguised as emotion, a test wrapped in affection. She didn't change. The truth did. And once you see that truth, once you understand how the game is played, you can never unsee it again. That's when everything shifts. Her silence no longer shakes you. Her validation no longer defines you. Her beauty no longer blinds you. Because now, you see behind the mask. You see how love, attention, and control all move together like threads in a web designed to keep you chasing. And the moment you stop chasing, the moment you pull back your energy, her power collapses. This isn't about bitterness. It's about awakening. It's about stepping out of the fog and finally seeing yourself clearly, not as a man desperate for her approval, but as a man grounded in self-respect, clarity, and peace. Once you learn what I'm about to tell you, she can no longer manipulate your emotions. She can't trap you in confusion. She can't use love as leverage, because you'll know. And once a man knows, truly knows, the game ends. So stay until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see women, love, and yourself forever. There was a time when you believed love was pure. You thought that when a woman said, "I love you," she meant it in the way you did: absolute, unconditional, eternal. You imagined her affection as an unshakable fire that would keep burning through every storm. But the truth is, it was never unconditional. Not because she's cruel, not because women are heartless, but because love itself, in the modern world, has changed its shape. Most men never see it. They enter relationships blindfolded, mistaking comfort for devotion and consistency for loyalty. They build their entire emotional world around her smile, her warmth, her touch, without ever realizing those things come and go with the weather of her emotions. One day, she calls you her everything. The next, she's cold, distant, scrolling through her phone while your heart breaks in silence. You sit there wondering, what changed? But the better question is, what did you refuse to see? Love, in its purest form, is acceptance. But love, in the form most men experience, is conditional, anchored to how useful, attractive, or emotionally satisfying you are in the moment. Her affection often mirrors your current value, not your inherent worth. When you're ambitious, confident, consistent, she adores you. When you're tired, lost, uncertain, she starts to withdraw. It's not evil, it's instinct. Women are emotional economists. They invest where they feel safe, where the return seems certain. And the moment they sense your frame cracking, their instincts whisper, "He's slipping." That whisper grows louder until it becomes distance. Most men panic when that happens. They try harder, give more, sacrifice deeper, as if devotion can fix disinterest. They buy gifts, plan surprise, write long texts. But what they're really doing is negotiating with emotion, and emotion never signs contracts. You see, The moment your love becomes a performance, it stops being love. It turns into a trade. And no matter how much you give, the exchange will never feel balanced. Because the terms keep changing. The more you invest, the less she respects the currency. And slowly, without realizing it, you start erasing yourself to keep her satisfied. That's how men lose their power, not when they're rejected, but when they start fearing rejection, when their self-worth becomes dependent on how she reacts that day, when silence feels like punishment and affection feels like oxygen. Here's the harsh truth. If she only loves you when you're winning, that's not love, that's admiration. If she only desires you when you're convenient, that's not connection, that's utility. And if her warmth disappears every time life gets cold, that's not devotion, that's dependency. But when you awaken to this, something powerful happens. You stop begging for consistency from someone who was never built to provide it. You stop calling it betrayal when it's simply behavior. You stop interpreting her emotions as the measure of your worth. Because the truth is, she's just responding to your energy. When you're grounded, calm, and self-focused, she feels secure. When you're needy, reactive, disperate, she feels chaos. Women don't consciously plan this. It's ancient programming. And the man who understands that doesn't hate it, he learns from it. The awakened man doesn't chase reassurance. He studies patterns, e observis quietly, without resentment, without theatrics. He watches how her affection fluctuates with circumstance and makes peace with the reality that love, like the tide, rises and falls, because awareness is liberation. When you see love for what it truly is, a reflection, not a guarantee, you stop drowning in disappointment. You stop mistaking her emotional storms for your personal failures. You start protecting your energy, your time, your giving nature. You learn to observe before you invest, to test before you trust, to require reciprocity instead of assuming it. And in that moment, you reclaim something far greater than her affection. You reclaim your clarity. Picture this. She begins to pull away, hoping you'll chase like before. But this time, you don't. You stay composed. You don't send the long message. You don't demand closure. You simply let silence speak. Because now you understand real love doesn't vanish under silence. Only attachment does. That's the turning point. When a man learns to stop giving endlessly, he becomes powerful again. Not because he withholds, but because he chooses. He gives from abundance, not from fear. He loves without losing himself in the process. When you stop loving blindly, you start seeing clearly. You realize that conditional love doesn't have to make you bitter. It can make you wise. It can teach you where to give, when to give, and who deserves it. It can teach you to set boundaries so strong they become a form of peace. Every man must face this moment of awakening. It hurts. It shatters illusions you built since childhood, the fairy tale that said, "If I give enough, she'll stay." But once the pain settles, what remains is strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't beg to be understood. The kind that quietly says, "I see you. but I also see myself. And here's the paradox. When you stop being desperate for her love, she starts feeling drawn to yours. Because peace is magnetic. Because detachment is mysterious. Because strength is rare. When you no longer chase, you create space. And in that space, only the genuine will remain. So, remember this. Love her. But don't lose yourself. Give. But don't beg. Stay open. But stay grounded. Because love is not meant to complete you, it's meant to complement you. And if she walks away when you stop overgiving, that's not your loss. That's your liberation. You are not here to earn love like a wage. You are here to embody it with standards, with peace, with dignity. Because once a man understands the truth about conditional love, he stops chasing what's temporary and starts becoming what's eternal. That is the awakening. That is the first step to becoming untouchable. They told you that love is built on effort, that if you just show up enough, care enough, message enough, she'll finally see your worth. But no one ever told you the truth. Your attention is the most valuable currency you will ever possess. Attention isn't free. It's energy. It's focus. It's your life force. And wherever it flows, value grows. Every glance, every text, every compliment you give is a small deposit of power. And the more you hand it out, the less it's worth. That's why some men give everything and still go unnoticed, while others, who barely say a word, seem to command respect without trying. It's not luck, it's scarcity. What's rare has value. What's constant becomes invisible. When a man first likes a woman, he often floods her with attention texts, reactions, validation, constant availability. At first, it feels romantic, like devotion. But over time, that abundance kills mystery. It suffocates attraction. She stops wondering, does he like me because she already knows? And what is fully known is no longer exciting. Modern men mistake availability for affection. They think being always there proves loyalty. But what it really proves is dependency. And dependency never inspires. Desire it drains it. Here's the paradox. When you treat your attention as something sacred, people start treating it like it's sacred too. When you give it recklessly, they treat it like air always there. Unnoticed. Taken for granted. Picture this. You text her every morning. Every night. You check her stories. You react to her posts. You double text when she doesn't reply. At first, she smiles. Then she delays her responses. Then she stops replying altogether. You sit there, confused, wondering what you did wrong. But the truth is, you gave too much, too soon. You removed the tension that keeps attraction alive. Because desire lives in distance, it breathes in uncertainty. It grows in silence. The moment you give her full access to your energy, she no longer feels the need to earn it. And what is unearned rarely holds value. When you constantly offer attention, she doesn't have to reach for it. When you constantly reassure her, she never has to miss you. And when she never has to miss you, you become replaceable. That's the harsh truth most men never learn. They think the way to a woman's heart is through more attention, but it's not. It's through intentional attention, attention that must be earned, not expected. You have to understand, women know the power of attention better than men do. They live in it. It's their oxygen. Social media, validation, compliments, all of it feeds the same instinct to feel desired, admired, seen. But here's the catch. The man who gives his attention away freely becomes one of many. The man who guards it becomes one in a million. When you stop giving constant validation, you create space. And in that space, something interesting happens. Curiosity is born. She starts to wonder, what is he doing? Who has his attention now? That's when your presence begins to echo louder than your words ever did. Because silence, when it comes from a grounded man, is louder than noise. But make no mistake, this isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing cold or pretending not to care. It's about respect for your energy, for your focus, for your worth. Attention is not a game. It's a reflection of what you value. And if you keep spending it on people who don't reciprocate, you'll end up emotionally bankrupt. You need to learn to protect your attention the same way you protect your money. You wouldn't hand out cash to strangers who don't value you, so why hand out your focus, your time, your validation? Every moment you give to the wrong person is a moment stolen from your goals, your peace, your growth. The strongest men are not those who chase the loudest. They're the ones who move in silence, building a life so magnetic that women chase them instead. Not because they play games, but because their attention feels earned, because it's rare, because it means something. Think about it. When a man pours his attention into his mission, his body, his discipline, his craft, that energy transforms into presence. Presence can't be faked. It's that quiet confidence people feel when you enter a room. It's the energy that says, I don't need to prove myself. I'm already enough. That's what women are drawn to, not the man who tries to impress, but the man who is already impressed with himself. You become magnetic when your focus shifts from chasing women to chasing mastery. When your validation no longer comes from being wanted, but from becoming valuable. That's the pivot, the moment your attention turns inward. Your energy becomes power. So here's the truth you must remember. Your attention creates reality. Wherever you place it, that thing grows, whether it's your goals or your pain, your woman or your wounds. The secret is not to stop giving attention, it's to start giving it with purpose. Direct it toward what builds you, toward your strength, toward your purpose. Because when you build yourself, you automatically raise the price of your attention, and the world adjusts accordingly. The man who gives attention to everything stands for nothing. The man who gives attention selectively becomes a man of value. Now imagine this. She reaches out, but this time, you don't respond right away. Not out of pride, out of presence. You're busy, focused, in your element. You reply when it fits your rhythm, not hers. And suddenly, the balance shifts. She starts to invest. She starts to pursue, not because you ignored her, but because you respected yourself. Respect breeds respect. Scarcity breeds value. Focus breeds attraction. That's the new law of power. What you give freely loses its weight. What you guard becomes priceless. So, guard your attention like treasure. Spend it like a king, not like a beggar. Give it where it multiplies, not where it drains. Because your attention is not just what you look at, it's who you become. And once you learn to master where your attention goes, you'll never have to chase love again. You'll attract it effortlessly. Because a man who owns his attention owns his world. Every man remembers the moment he lost control. Maybe it was when she ignored your message and your stomach twisted in knots. Maybe it was when she said, "I need space," and you begged her to stay. Or when she pushed your buttons just to see how far she could go and you exploded. We've all been there. That moment when emotion hijacks reason and dignity disappears in the noise. But here's the truth that most men never learn. Every time you react, you give away your power. She doesn't need to control you if she can simply control your reactions. Because whoever controls your reactions controls you. Women are emotional masters by nature. They read tone, posture, silence, rhythm. They know how to test not out of cruelty, but instinct. They test to see if the ground beneath them is solid. If your composure cracks easily, she knows she can't lean on you when life gets hard. So she pushes, she withdraws, she criticizes. Not always consciously, sometimes it's automatic. A dance of polarity. And most men fail that test, not because they're weak, but because they confuse emotion with love. They think that yelling, pleading, chasing, or over-explaining is proof of passion. It isn't. It's proof of insecurity. Let's get one thing clear. Emotional control is not emotional suppression. You are not meant to be a robot. You are meant to be a fortress calm outside, alive inside. Your emotions are tools, not masters. A sword, not a leash. When you learn to use them consciously, you lead with power. When they use you, you fall into chaos. Look around the world. Keeps telling men to express themselves, but expression without discipline is just noise. The Stoics understood this long before psychology existed. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that truth hasn't aged a day. Picture this. She gives you the silent treatment, expecting you to crumble. You don't. She threatens to leave, waiting for panic. You remain calm. She tries to trigger your jealousy, subtle comments, social games, delays. You don't bite. Your silence confuses her. Your calmness unnerves her. Because for the first time, she realizes she doesn't control the rhythm anymore. You do. That's the essence of masculine power, stillness under pressure. When chaos rises, your heart slows. When she yells, you lower your voice. When she withdraws, you stay grounded, not cold composed. Because emotional control isn't about freezing your heart. It's about protecting your throne. And every time you keep your composure, you reinforce your kingdom. Most men lose themselves because they believe emotion equals sincerity. They think, if I don't react, she'll think I don't care. No, your care is not measured by your panic. It's measured by your consistency, by how you act when others are trying to shake you. When she screams, let your silence speak. When she blames, let your calmness disarm. When she tests, let your peace answer. Because silence is not weakness, it's clarity. The man who can stay silent in emotional chaos is the man who sees everything clearly. And once you can see clearly, you can choose wisely. Understand this. The strongest weapon a woman can use is not beauty, not words, not withdrawal. It's emotional leverage. When she knows your triggers, she can make you dance. When she knows your fears, she can make you chase. When she knows your anger, she can make you look like the villain. That's why control is everything. Control doesn't make you less human, it makes you unbreakable. Because the man who can't control himself will always be controlled by someone else. Emotional control also changes how you see yourself. When you master your emotions, you start to view challenges differently. Pain doesn't become an emergency anymore. It becomes information. Anger becomes energy. Rejection becomes redirection. Silence becomes strength. You stop reacting to life like a victim and start responding like a strategist. That's what Stoic masculinity truly means, not indifference, but awareness. It's knowing what you feel without being ruled by it. It's walking through chaos with still eyes and a steady breath. It's realizing that she doesn't make you angry, you choose anger. She doesn't make you jealous, you allow jealousy. You hold the switch. You hold the key. And when you own that, no one can move you without your permission. Now, understand this dynamic deeply. When a woman can no longer shake your emotions, she's forced to meet your standards. She can no longer rely on manipulation, only authenticity. And that's when the games end. Because emotional chaos can only survive where reaction lives. The moment you go still, the manipulation suffocates. That's the paradox. Your calm is her test and her mirror. If she's genuine, your peace will inspire her. If she's playing games, your silence will expose her. Either way, you win. Imagine this scenario. She storms out, expecting you to follow. You don't. You continue your day. She sends a long, emotional text. You wait. You breathe. You respond hours later with clarity, not anger. That single decision resets the entire dynamic, because emotional control shifts the frame from reaction to direction, and whoever sets the direction leads. Leadership in relationships isn't about dominance, it's about stability. When you can stay stable in chaos, people trust you. When you lose control, they question you. Every woman wants a man she can feel safe around, not a man who mirrors her storms. So here's the law of emotional power. Don't respond immediately. Pause. Let silence stretch. Let your emotions cool before your words. Leave your mouth. Every second of composure buys you leverage. Every outburst sells it away. The man who waits 10 seconds before replying says, "1,000 things in that silence. I am not your puppet. My peace is not negotiable. I control my world." That is emotional mastery. So the next time she tests you, don't panic. Don't chase. Don't over-explain. Simply breathe. Center yourself. Respond when you're ready. Because calmness is not passivity, it's precision. Let her feel the stillness that comes from a man who cannot be shaken. That's not coldness, that's power. Because true strength doesn't shout. It whispers through composure. Remember this, love without control becomes chaos. Affection without boundaries becomes addiction. Emotion without awareness becomes manipulation. But when a man learns to master himself, he masters every relationship he's in, because when you control yourself, you no longer need to control her. She adjusts naturally to your frequency. And if she doesn't, you'll walk away with dignity intact. That's the Stoic advantage. That's what separates a man from a boy restraint, because the man who controls himself controls the game. Not by force, not by fear, but by unshakable calm. That's how you win without fighting. That's how you lead without speaking. That's how you become untouchable. Lions don't chase gazelle. They choose the hunt. They move with patience, power, and presence, never desperation. Because the lion knows something most men have forgotten, abundance makes you calm. Scarcity makes you weak. From a young age, men are taught a lie. We're told that the woman is the prize, that love must be earned through pursuit, through performance, through proving. So we chase, we compete, we lower our standards to be chosen, never realizing the truth. The prize was never her. The prize was always you. You see, a woman's options are given by nature. She walks into a room and attention follows. But a man's options are forged, built through discipline, work, purpose, and consistency. That's the brutal beauty of masculinity. Nothing is handed to you, but everything can be created. A man with no purpose will always cling to the first woman who gives him attention. He will tolerate disrespect, overlook red flags, and call it loyalty. He'll sacrifice his peace for validation, because deep down, he fears scarcity. He fears there will never be another chance, another woman, another connection, and that fear turns him into a slave. But the man who builds, the one who invests in his body, his craft, his mission, knows a different reality. He doesn't chase women. He attracts them, because his life itself radiates strength, direction, and peace. He doesn't need to convince anyone of his value. He embodies it. Think about it. When you believe she's the only one, you'll tolerate almost anything: betrayal, disrespect, inconsistency. You'll beg, because you fear losing what you think is irreplaceable. But when you know you have options, everything changes. You stop negotiating your dignity. You stop explaining your worth. You stop fearing endings, because you know every ending carries a new beginning within it. That's the law of options. When you realize abundance, manipulation dies, because no one can control a man who isn't afraid to walk away. The abundance mindset isn't arrogance, it's awareness. It's knowing that the world is vast, and value recognizes value. It's understanding that you don't need to settle for someone who half respects you just because you're afraid to be alone. It's seeing solitude not as punishment, but as the forge where power is made, because solitude is where men become unshakable. It's where the boy who begged transforms into the man who chooses. And once you start choosing, your entire energy changes. You stand differently. You speak differently. You stop asking for permission to exist. You stop chasing attention and start commanding it. That's the difference between scarcity and abundance. Scarcity asks, will she stay? Abundance says, if she leaves, he'll still rise. Look around your life. Every hour you spend chasing her could have been spent building yourself. Every text you send to seek reassurance could have been a rep in the gym. Every night you waste worrying, if she still loves you, could have been a night mastering your craft. The moment you redirect that energy inward, your options multiply. You don't need to chase, because options are drawn to growth. Women feel it. They sense it. They can tell when a man's value is self-generated, not dependent on their validation. That energy is magnetic. A man who's focused on his mission walks differently. He speaks with purpose. He isn't desperate for attention because his life already gives him meaning. That's why high-value men seem to have endless options. It's not luck, it's gravity. Their energy pulls opportunities because it's rooted in direction. But understand this clearly. Abundance isn't about having multiple women. It's about having multiple paths, multiple ways to grow, to express, to live. When you have purpose, your world expands. When you have skills, you have leverage. When you have discipline, you have freedom. The man who builds himself becomes a man of choice. He doesn't need to cling to anyone because he knows he can rebuild anything. And that quiet knowing is what makes him powerful. When she realizes that you don't need her to feel complete, that you can love her, but also let her go, that's when her attraction deepens. Because the man who can walk away with peace commands respect effortlessly. There's a reason women chase men who seem hard to impress. It's not the coldness, it's the composure. It's the quiet confidence that says, I'm whole. With or without you. That's not detachment, that's strength. It's the energy of a man who has built his own abundance, who no longer fears scarcity, who no longer begs for validation. You'll notice something magical when you reach that place. You stop competing. You stop explaining. You stop comparing yourself to other men. Because when you're in your lane, there's no race, only momentum. And that momentum builds freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to walk away. Freedom to stay, only when it's mutual. Here's the paradox. The more options you build, the less you need them, because abundance kills desperation. And once desperation dies, respect is born. When you know you have options, you don't beg. You don't tolerate disrespect. You don't chase attention. You move differently, not arrogantly, but gracefully, because true confidence isn't loud. It's quiet. It's calm. It's the man who looks at rejection and says, she wasn't the only one, and I'm still the man I was before she left. That's abundance in action. So build yourself until you no longer fear loss, until walking away feels natural, not painful, until no feels like redirection, not rejection. Because once you reach that point, nothing can control you. Not love, not loneliness, not desire. Build your body, build your mind, build your purpose, because those are the foundations of infinite choice. Every gym session is a reminder that your discipline builds options. Every book you read sharpens the man she can't manipulate. Every dollar you save, every boundary you enforce, every dream you chase, they all whisper the same truth. You don't need to chase what you can attract. So, if she leaves, let her. If she tests, stay calm. If she returns, decide if she's worth the throne you built. Because kings don't beg, they choose. And once you live by that law, the law of options, the game changes forever. Without self-respect, no victory matters. With it, no loss hurts. Every man must face this truth sooner or later. You can master your emotions. You can guard your attention. You can even build abundance. But if you don't respect yourself, none of it lasts. Because self-respect is the crown that keeps your head high when the world tries to make you bow. It's the quiet standard that says, I don't chase. I don't beg. I don't break my own rules for temporary pleasure. It's the invisible armor that turns rejection into redirection, loneliness into power, and pain into purpose. Most men trade their crown too cheaply. They give it away the moment they fall in love. They bend their principles to keep the peace. They tolerate disrespect, excuses, and half-hearted effort, calling it understanding. But understanding without boundaries is just self-betrayal. When you start apologizing for your standards, you start digging your own grave. When you stay silent while being disrespected, you teach her how to treat you. And every time you allow what hurts your dignity, you send the same message to yourself. My peace is negotiable. But here's the truth. Your peace is sacred. You are not here to please. You are here to lead first yourself, then the world. A man with self-respect doesn't shout to be heard. His silence speaks for him. He doesn't chase to be chosen. He chooses himself first. He doesn't demand loyalty. He embodies it. When you respect yourself, you naturally filter out what isn't aligned with your standards. Disrespect can't survive in your presence because it doesn't find oxygen there. You don't have to punish anyone. Your boundaries do that for you. That's why self-respect isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's living in harmony with your principles, even when it costs you comfort. Because every time you betray yourself for someone else, you lose twice their respect and your own. The man who bows to beauty loses his crown. The man who bows to peace becomes the king. There's a difference between loving her and worshipping her. Love gives freely. Worship sacrifices identity. And the moment she senses you'll trade your values for her approval, she will test it again and again. Not because she's cruel, but because she needs to feel your frame, the edge that defines your presence. A woman may admire your kindness, but she only respects your backbone. That's the paradox most men never learn. You don't earn respect by giving more. You earn it by giving less to what disrespects you. Boundaries are the language of self-respect. And every time you enforce one, you remind the world and yourself that your dignity is non-negotiable. Picture this. She crosses a line. The old you would explain, argue, beg for understanding. The new you just says one word, enough. Then you walk away. No drama, no rage, just distance. Because distance is discipline, and discipline is love. Love for yourself. You'll feel the pull to go back, to prove your worth, to show her how loyal you are. But real loyalty isn't about staying no matter what. It's about staying true to yourself, no matter who leaves. When you place respect above desire, you shift from emotional boy to sovereign man. You stop asking, does she still want me? And start asking, do I still respect myself around her? That's the real metric of a man. Self-respect also changes your energy. You stop seeking permission to be confident. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop fearing rejection because you finally realize rejection can't take away what you never outsourced. You no longer walk into a room hoping to impress. You walk in already impressed with who you've become. That quiet self-assurance can't be faked. It radiates through posture, tone, and eye contact. People feel it before you speak. That's why a man with self-respect doesn't chase validation. He gives validation to himself through discipline. Every workout, every early morning, every decision to keep his word. That's self-respect in motion. And that kind of respect creates attraction that words could never build. Let me tell you this. You will be tested. The moment you raise your standards, life will send people who tempt you to lower them again. They'll say you've changed, and they'll be right. You've evolved. Because growth always looks like distance to those who refuse to move. Don't apologize for your boundaries. Don't explain your silence. Don't justify your peace. Those who truly respect you won't need convincing. They'll adjust or exit. Both outcomes serve you. Remember this law. Respect yourself first, or no one else will. It's not the world's job to value you. It's yours. And when you do, the world follows your lead. Because energy is a mirror. When you treat yourself as a man of worth, people reflect that back to you. When you tolerate disrespect, they mirror that too. You teach people how to love you by the way you love yourself. That's why self-respect is not just the fifth truth, it's the crown that holds the others together.